Just want to check if the Mumbai Vidarbha match is going well or not. Give me 1 second. That's the real priorities in life. Vidarbha 231 for 5. Not too bad, not too bad. There's still some hope. Oh, Karun Nair is out. What a shame. That's bad news.
Dr. Tharoor,
Hi.
more election season.
One more election season, yeah.
Thiruvananthapuram. You have your opponent set. How are the elections looking like?
Well, it's a three-cornered fight, as it always is in Thiruvananthapuram now for some time. But first time in 2009, I took the seat from the communists who'd won it the two previous times. Ironically, the sitting MP then, who didn't contest in 2009, is now my opponent 15 years later. But the last two elections, the BJP came second. So it's very clear we have to take both parties seriously. They both have their appeal, they both have their support bases here. And I'm not in any way taking anything for granted or taking anything lightly. I think it's going to be an important and serious contest. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, Dr. Tharoor, you are a Palakkad native.
Yep.
But Thiruvananthapuram is what we identify Dr. Shashi Tharoor with.
Correct. I'm glad about that.
Karma Bhumi, in Malayalam we say.
It's not only my Karma Bhumi, it's becoming my real Nadu now, because I come here when I come back to Kerala. This is now home.
Okay, so what is it that makes Thiruvananthapuram extra special, since you've travelled to many parts across the world?
It's everything. First of all, of course, it is the capital of Kerala. It's got deep cultural resonance, a tremendous amount of cultural opportunities here. It is also the place the first ever technopark in India was created in, which is an area that I've been focusing on expanding its reach. It was 17,500 workers when I first came in 2009. It's up to 75,000 now, and it's growing still, and that's a very important priority for me. It's also at the same time a very manageable city. When we look, for example, at the way in which a city like Kochi is sort of choking upon itself with, hour-long traffic jams everywhere and so on, Thiruvananthapuram is still a place where you can get from almost anywhere to almost everywhere in 20-25 minutes. It's still manageable. It's beautiful, as you can see, our surroundings. This is right in the heart of the city, 10 minutes from where I live, and we've got this beautiful park. We've got, at the same time, rich cultural heritage, the museum here. You can do the museum thoroughly in an hour and a half, and yet it has such extraordinary treasures. At the same time, it's a city of temples. I think somebody said that there is no city in India where there are more temples per square feet than Thiruvananthapuram, including our very famous, legendary Padmanabha Swami Kshetram. And I find all of these things appeal to me enormously. In fact, win or lose, this is my permanent home. I'm not going anywhere from here. This is now very much my city, my place, and as you say, in many people's minds across India and elsewhere, I'm identified with this place and this place is identified with me. So, Thiruvananthapuram is Sondam Tharoor എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ, that is really the way one feels. Trivandrum's own Tharoor.
Yes. Dr. Tharoor, it's been 15 years of being Thiruvananthapuram's representative. We found an archive footage from our India Today group, and I'd like to play it to you.
Oh my gosh,
to listen
okay.
to what you said back in 2009.
കഴിവുകെട്ടവരാണോ ആ കോൺഗ്രസ്സുകാർ? കോൺഗ്രസിലെ മുൻഗാമികൾക്ക് കഴിയാതിരുന്ന താങ്കൾക്ക് എങ്ങനെ കഴിയും എന്നുള്ളതാണ് ചോദ്യം. ആരും പറഞ്ഞത് കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ടില്ല, എന്ന് പറയ കാര്യങ്ങൾ നടന്നിട്ടുണ്ട്. ഇതുവരെ അവര് മാത്രമല്ലല്ലോ MP ആയിരിക്കുന്നത്, വേറെ പാർട്ടിയിൽ നിന്നും MP വന്നിട്ടുണ്ട്. ഈ 5 വർഷത്തെ ഒരു വികസനം നടന്നിട്ടില്ലെന്ന് ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞത്. Anytime they want to interview me, including with panelists asking any questions they want to ask, I don't mind. But I'm not going to participate in the circus.
I've forgotten the context in which I said that now, but I think it's actually quite amusing to look back on 15 years. Obviously, I had no idea what I was doing the first time around. It was a brave and perhaps some would say foolhardy venture to contest an election when I had never even voted in an election before that, because I left India at the age of 19 when the voting age was 21 to go abroad and study, and after 3.5 decades abroad, I got this opportunity to come and contest. But I'm pleased to say that I was able to hold my own then, and I believe I'm still holding my own now. Hello. Namaskar. कहाँ से आप?
हम बिहार से आए।
अच्छा, बिहार से आए हैं, अच्छी बात है। बस जगह देखने के लिए या कुछ काम है यहाँ?
नहीं, यहाँ एयरफोर्स
एयरफोर्स में है। अच्छा, सुरक्षित रहना भाई। अच्छी बात. Namaskar. Jai Hind, Jai Hind. अच्छा. So Shibi, what's interesting is we've just had this walk and met 4 different groups of people, and none of them is a voter here. Not one of them.
I was about to tell you that.
They're
Nobody
all.
is from Thiruvananthapuram.
No one is from Thiruvananthapuram. This is a tourist spot, so you picked a spot where I can't get any votes out of my walk. But
No,
anyway,
but by evening you will find a lot of. Yesterday I came here, I spoke to a lot of voters.
great.
Old.
Yeah, but by evening I'll be elsewhere doing other things. Lots of functions. Come, let's move on.
Dr. Raj, I want to look back at the last 15 years.
Yeah.
When I would just watch the video. Okay, if I'm supposed to ask, I'm an outsider, and
Okay.
I'm going to ask somebody from Thiruvananthapuram, a native of Thiruvananthapuram, how was the last 15 years of Dr. Shashi Tharoor as your representative? How
Right.
do you think those residents are going to respond like?
Partially, it may depend on what their ideological and political commitments are, and partially on which part of the constituency they live. For example, there's whole stretches of the constituency whose lives have been dramatically affected by my success in breaking a 40-year-old logjam on a road bypass project from Karakutam and Trivandrum to the Tamil Nadu border, which literally for 40 years after they'd laid the marker stones had not moved. And I was able to persuade a number of ministers and National Highway Authority officials to actually include this in the UPA government's budget. I personally followed up the surveys, the Gazette notification, everything within time to ensure that the first checks actually changed hands before the government fell in 2014. And the result was that people knew that I had done this for them. I had done it before any other part of Kerala actually got the highway built. And I was able thereafter to get a head start when the new government came to power. Mr. Gadkari was quite cooperative and his ministry, but it required an enormous amount of work from the sitting MP. I must have gone over 100 times to different spots where the local community had objections, had problems, persuaded national highway officials to come and bring an underpass or an overpass or an interchange or whatever. All of this kind of work to make sure that the road was built without any hassles, and at the end of the day that it serves the people, which is what all development is all about. In the coastal area, one major project I brought through was the Vinyam port, but it's turned out that the government's failure to give adequate compensation to the fishing community members whose lives have been affected, that has turned out to be a bit of a problem. A third issue in the coastal belt has been the devastation caused by things like Cyclone Oki, sea attacks, inundations, and I've been very active and present in the response to those particular challenges, including bringing assistance from the centre. In fact, when Cyclone Oki was happening, I sat in the parish hall of one of the villages that was right at the centre of the cyclone and talked to ministers, talked to Navy commanders and so on to rush urgent emergency assistance to our fishermen stranded at sea. And some of them were helped, some did perish in that tragedy. So those are the kinds of issues in the coastal areas. In the city, there have been various things that I was able to be actively involved in, but particularly proud of my role in the Technopark, because I was the one who took the initiative to reach out to Oracle and to bring them over to Thiruvananthapuram and start an office here. I played a major role in influencing the final decision of Nissan to shift its entire IT wing to Thiruvananthapuram, and so on and so forth. I'm in dialogue with Tech Mahindra. They've opened a small unit. I'm hoping it'll get bigger, and so on. So I'm very strongly committed to expanding our Technopark and making it one of the most attractive places for IT companies to invest and work. So these would be some of the big headline items. I won't say that they're the only things, obviously, because I'm issuing today or tomorrow morning a 70-page report in English and Malayalam of all the achievements of the last 15 years. But if I had to pick 3 or 4 top items, these would be those items.
So this is how, if I am a neutral voter, since I've the last 15 years I've seen 15 years of Dr. Tharoor, if I'm willing to look for a change, this is how you're going to convince me?
Not entirely. That's part of it. The other part of it is that I've been able to speak for the values and principles that Keralites hold dear on the national and international stage. I've been a voice for 15 years in the parliament and outside the parliament in various platforms for secularism in the sense of India's pluralism and diversity. I've stood up against iniquitous laws that have been brought by the BJP government. I have been a voice consistently for a more humane and more generous understanding of what it takes to preserve our diversity. And all of these things are part of what my role is. I believe that politics is not only about what you can bring in sort of transactional rupee and project terms, but also the stands you take, the principles you articulate, what you stand for. And I believe a lot of people in Kerala appreciate the fact that I stand for the civilizational values of this state. We've been receiving people of various faiths for a very, very long time, and from going back 3,000 years, and we've all coexisted together in harmony. That's what we'd like the whole of India to be like, and that's the vision that I've been speaking about.
Now, Dr. Tharoor, when Rajiv Chandrasekhar is your NDA candidate, in the last two terms, BJP finished second. It's a constituency that's looked forward by everybody in the country. When was the first time you got to know that Rajiv Chandrasekhar is the candidate that's fielded against you?
Look, it's been rumored for quite some time, and in fact, I know Rajiv, and I've jokingly asked him in Parliament, the Rajya Sabha and the Lok Sabha are now much physically closer to each other. So we ran into each other a couple of times going to our respective chamber. I said, "Oh, are you going to be contesting against me?" And he said, No, it's Mr. Jaishankar. Or, No, it's Nirmala Sitharaman. So we were partially joking, partially I think the BJP didn't make up its mind who to put forward. But look, I welcome all opponents. I've never taken the view that I should win by attacking other people. I'm very happy to see the voters being given a choice. And as far as I'm concerned, in all these elections and in the service I've done since then, I've never needed to attack others. My role is to speak for myself, for my voters, for my people, and at the same time for the values and principles I'm proud to defend. And of course to try and get some benefits for my constituency wherever that's possible. And I've been doing that also. But I think both of these go together. And it has very little to do with the identity of the opponents. They have the right to contest. And as far as I'm concerned, they're most welcome to do so.
Well, right after your candidature was announced officially in Delhi, you said that Rajiv Chandrasekhar is a businessman.
He is a businessman.
Yes.
That's what he's famous for. I think he's a very successful businessman. It's not a disparaging comment. It's an accurate comment.
Yes, and he's a bit unfamiliar in the constituency in comparison to you.
Well, that's true.
But when you came in 2009 to Thiruvananthapuram,
I was equivalent. In fact, the person who was the sitting MP is now my rival, and certainly no one can accuse him of not being a familiar face in the constituency. So we've got both kinds of opponents, as it were. Somebody who's quite well known in Thiruvananthapuram circles, and somebody who's relatively unknown, but who is now obviously bustling around the place, which he should be doing.
I could see a bit of a similarities. Both of you are not raised in Kerala, Malayalis, but raised outside Kerala. Had a different career, then came into politics, starting off in Thiruvananthapuram.
Well, in my case, I did start off with electoral office. In the case of Rajiv, as you know, he's got a Rajya Sabha experience, so he's worked in a different way in politics from me. So he's no stranger to politics, but nor has he actually ever presented himself before the people to seek their votes. And I'm sure he's finding that a challenge and an interesting experience anyway. And as far as I'm concerned, obviously the fourth election is a lot more familiar territory than the first one. The first one, I was, to be very honest, quite out of my depth. Each day was something new. I was learning as I went along. Today, a lot of things are familiar, a lot of people are familiar, and a lot of challenges are always there, and there are things I've faced and overcome in the past. So to that degree, it's a different experience for me because I've done it so often.
Since you mentioned Pandit Ravindran not being fielded in 2000 and MP against him, I noticed one more thing in 2009 or 14 or 2019 if we see, none of your opponents were repeated. It was all fresh faces fielded by both the parties.
That's right.
Do you feel like you're the one man standing tall on one side and two strong parties in the state are like fielding two different candidates?
They've been trying to figure out what should take me down. I must say I don't blame them for trying everything. So, for example, there was a serious attempt made in 2014 by the left to put forward a Nadar Christian, which there was a worry that this might polarize votes along the lines of religion. Didn't really happen. In the case of 2019, we actually had, how can I put it bluntly, three candidates of, shall we say, different sort of profiles from each other, but two who could claim that they had had a lot more grassroots rise in the world of politics than I had, because I came into politics, became a candidate, won an election, became a minister within a few weeks of having entered the game. And so all of this put me in a somewhat different bracket, which they could legitimately challenge. Even then, the people said, no, that's okay. He may not have risen from the ranks, but he's one of ours now. So I'm expecting that by 2024, those who have got used to me, who say they are proud of me or even happy with me, they will want the service to continue, and I'm very happy to do that. Those who feel it's time for a change, which is always a human instinct, I'm glad they've got a choice. They can pick from the available alternatives.
Okay, Doctor, also when you look at Kerala politics in general, in 2014 we saw the Congress-led UDF winning 14 seats and the left 16 seats and the left getting 4. 2 years later, we had the assembly elections where left won 91 seats and came to power. 2019, the picture is again back with the Congress winning 19 out of the 20 seats. Again, 2 years later, the left is out there with 99 seats. So a lot of people actually ask me, how does this work in Kerala?
Exactly.
So what are your perspectives about it?
Look, I think people in Kerala, being sufficiently sort of educated and aware and very political in their own thinking, vote differently in each kind of election. And so when they look at the assembly elections, first of all, the electoral unit is more local, more focused and smaller. And I have to admit that the CPM in particular and the left generally have organized themselves extremely effectively in these units. When it comes to the Lok Sabha election, our voters understand that they're voting for who's going to rule India. And they know the left can never be a significant force in Delhi because, at best they will send representatives from one state. It may be 4, it may be 5, which was the peak I've seen in my 15 years. That's not going to get them very far because they will be essentially a small voice against whoever the government is. Whereas with us, there is at least a prospect we might come to power, and that if not, we would still be the principal opposition. And therefore, people tend to think nationally in voting in the Lok Sabha elections, which is why, for example, in my constituency, I'm sorry to say that in the last assembly election, 6 of my 7 assembly segments went to the CPM. And only 1 was retained by the Congress, and that's Kovalam, which also happened to be where I got my largest majority in the last parliamentary assembly elections, but still represents an indication of the relative sort of organizational strengths and frailties in the assembly election level. Now, what's interesting too is that Kerala for 55 years practiced alternating governments. Every 5 years, the LDF gave way to the UDF and the UDF gave way to the LDF. And then suddenly, for the first time in 2021, the LDF got re-elected. There's been a very sobering challenge for all of us. I believe it is very important for the Congress and the UDF to sit down and take back the reins in 2026, because otherwise you're seeing some of the worst excesses that you can imagine in any state government. Tremendous financial mismanagement, ineptitude. Kerala is sinking in debt, and all the government can do is go off and get more debt. Already the debt servicing, the paying of interest and salaries and pensions and so on, exceeds their entire budget for development work in the state. It can't go on like this. The state has to prosper and thrive. So that's become a real problem. The other problem has been the resort to violence, which is a favored tactic of the CPM at many times in our state politics. Just last night I got an urgent message that 3 or 4 of the young people from my party were putting up my posters, got badly beaten up by a bunch of 25 more DYFI goons, and these are essentially CPM people. And what's more, they issued a threat that if they continue, they're going to get beaten up more. I immediately had to go. I visited them, I talked to them, and I called the police commissioner in front of them and requested that firm action be taken, because democracy cannot flourish if one party feels that with impunity they can beat up workers of another party. But that sadly has been the left's behavior in Kerala against their rivals, and we have to put an end to this. So I think it's very important that the democratic forces in the state defeat this party that has acquired so much of the arrogance of power. And the Lok Sabha election is not a bad place to start doing so.
So I have this one thing, sorry. So you have been here for 15 years. You can understand that you've almost have this cult status in this town. So 15 years is a good time, but now as a regular voter, I'm like, I need some change, right? Mr. Tharoor has done well for 15 years, but I think I somehow want change. And backing of Mr. Prime Minister Modi, Rajit Chandrasekhar is coming to your town. I'll give you 30 seconds. Convince my voter that why I should not vote for Rajit Chandrasekhar or the left.
Look, as I said, I don't believe in negative politics, but I will point out one thing very seriously. What has the BJP done for Kerala or for Trivandrum in the 10 years they've been in power? Which of their promises explicitly made to Kerala have they fulfilled? They promised an Aims, there is no Aims here. They made a promise on the floor of the House of Parliament that the National Institute of Speech and Hearing in Thiruvananthapuram would be upgraded to a national university. They broke that promise and put the National University for Speech and Hearing in the northeast because they wanted votes there. They promised a National Institute for Ayurveda in Kerala. Instead, they took it and gave it to Gujarat. So this is not a government that keeps its word. They believe in the theory of jumlas. Promise anything you like, you don't have to fulfill the promise. And therefore, why should we take any BJP assurances and promises seriously in this state? Kerala has nothing the BJP can point to they've done for the state or for this constituent.
You don't believe there's a Modi wave coming your way?
I don't believe there's anything like that, because if we point out to people, here they are coming and asking for your votes, what have they done for us in Kerala? And in particular, what have they done for us in Thiruvananthapuram? Mr. Chandrasekhar has been IT minister for 2.5 years. Has there been any IT contribution made by him until 2 days ago as a candidate when he announced some AI projects in the state? I mean, the problem with this government is they've neglected Kerala and Thiruvananthapuram. In fact, they tend to neglect states that they don't rule. And this has been startlingly apparent here. On top of that, what we're seeing with this government is that most of their touted achievements are not achievements at all. We've been hearing about skill development. Rajiv is the Minister of State for Skill Development also. Do you know that our workforce, our labour force of the whole of India was 2.3% skilled in 2014? It was a genuine problem. You know what the figure is 10 years later? 2.4%. They've gone up by 0.1%. They expect to get praise on the pat on the back for that. This is not a government that delivers anything except rhetoric, advertisements and bombast. There is no real achievement that Kerala or Thiruvananthapuram has seen. Why would you vote for them? Simple message.
One question more. To an extent, like you were talking about the voting pattern of the Malayalis, it varies during the Lok Sabha and the Assembly election. Now, today, to an extent, the BJP has been successful in creating a narrative that they're coming back to power. And a lot of people among the left and the Congress supporters also do believe that. Now, you're somebody, what I've noticed in you as a politician, that you speak with a sense of practicability. You speak in a realistic manner. So, do you think that thought that's there among the left and the Congress supporters is going to play in Kerala, at least in Thiruvananthapuram?
Look, this has been the BJP's tactic for quite some time. When Mr. Modi announces 370 is bar, 400 par and all the stuff, no one has sat down and asked him, where are you going to get these seats? Last time they maxed out in all the seats they're strong in. Where? If you already won every seat in Gujarat, every seat in Haryana, every seat in Rajasthan, all but one seat in Madhya Pradesh, all but 2 seats in Chhattisgarh, all but 1 seat in Karnataka and so on. Where are you going to increase your seats? In all the states I've mentioned, the only way you can go is down. So they're going to actually lose seats from the 303 they've got. And I think it's extremely doubtful that they're going to hit the 272 mark. Why do you think Mr. Modi is rushing around talking to parties he had unceremoniously thrown out from the NDA and begging them to come back? Why has he gone to Chandrababu Naidu, even called him a terrorist and asked him to come up, moved a no confidence motion against him, and they've asked him to come back to NDA? Why has he gone to Naveen Patnaik after the unceremonious manner in which the two parted 15 years ago? Why has he gone to places there's many other parties that have attacked him in the past? And why has he tried to split opposition parties like the Shiv Sena and the NCP? It's all about the fact that they fear they won't hit a majority mark without allies, and they're desperately trying to get allies to show themselves up. To me, that's a clear signal that this aura of inevitability that they want to convey is complete hokum. And if we can stand up and convince people this is all happening because they don't expect to win, they're only telling you they expect to win, don't believe them. I hope some people who are intelligent, Keralites are very intelligent and educated. 2019, there will be no Pulwama Balakot kind of incident which galvanized support behind the flag and behind the sitting government that's holding the flag. Today it's a different world. And it's time also that we ask people to think of their own self-interest. If you voted for Mr. Modi 10 years ago because you thought he'll get a job and you still don't have a job, why should you vote for him again? When we have the highest youth unemployment in the world, 45.4% of those between 20 and 24 have no employment. These are those looking for work. 1 out of 2 people don't have a job. And that's the job starting age group. So you can imagine what an extraordinarily, if people were to vote not because they believe these guys are winning anyway, but were to vote in terms of who can deliver for them, then you have to ask them, what have they delivered for you? And I believe whenever I ask audiences, have you or your families benefited in any way from any decision or action taken by the BJP government in the last 10 years? Practically no one finds anything. I spoke to an audience in Mumbai, not a Congress audience, a university crowd, not young people alone, mixed audience. And of about 500 people there, one woman raised her hand that she had benefited from a decision of the Modi government. It's really, really striking. And then this communalism doesn't fly in Kerala, Shibi. Okay, I mean, we have a state where people of all religions have lived together, amicably and in good faith. And here you've got a party that has got a disgraceful track record in the othering of Muslims, in the bashing up of Christians and priests and churches being attacked. Manipur, 230 churches destroyed. It's been a terrible track record when it comes to minority rights. Ours is a state with 47% minorities. Where do they think they're going to get the support from? I can tell the BJP there is nothing inevitable about you coming back. In fact, there is nothing inevitable about you even getting a majority. And we are going to show you that we're going to drop you low enough that the actual majority of seats are going to be with the opposition.
Loud.
So now, when we talk about Kerala, it's a Hindu majority state. With 52% Hindu.
53, I think, yeah. Mm-hmm. And Thiruvananthapuram is 68%,
Yes.
so that's a
Yes.
different consideration here.
Yes. But you know, a lot of times, a lot of people unaware about Kerala keep asking us that despite it being a Hindu majority state, what is going wrong for BJP in the state?
Well, the fact is that the idea that BJP speaks for all Hindus is completely preposterous. They don't. They speak for a particular kind of understanding of Hinduism, which is not the understanding that was taught to us by Mahatma Gandhi, by Swami Vivekananda, by most of the thinkers and spiritual leaders of Hinduism, who have taught us, for example, of the great importance of acceptance. Swami Vivekananda used to famously quote the Shiva Mahimna Stotram all the time, which says that just as many rivers flow down different mountains and valleys in different directions, some straight, some winding, and they end up in the same sea, so also all forms of worship end up with the same divide. And therefore, from Swami Vivekananda's point of view, there is no difference in various kinds of worship. Everyone is going to the same creator, and we should accept all equally. That kind of notion of Hinduism is not the Hindutva notion of Hinduism, which is excluding people rather than including and accepting people. Whereas in Kerala, we just lived like this for so many years. And frankly, our history is different. Islam did not come to Kerala with the sword. It came through traders and merchants who have been trading with Kerala for centuries before the advent of the Prophet. Judaism came here before the birth of Christ. Christianity came in the very early years of the faith. There are more people in Kerala whose families have been longer as Christian than anyone in Europe has been Christian. So you've got a whole series of traditions here which are very different from the incubatory sort of circles in which Hindutva was spawned. And I don't think that Kerala is going to be receptive beyond a certain point to this kind of communal dog whistling that our ruling party and establishment specialize in.
So now you were saying that opposition will be successful in convincing the voters otherwise that BJP has not done anything for them. But there is definitely a Ram Mandir inauguration that took place, that the country celebrated. The CA has been notified. What is opposition's actual strategy?
Well, we oppose the CAA unconditionally because it has done something unacceptable, which is to bring in a notion of religion into the concept of citizenship, which is unacceptable. It is a violation of the basic principles of the Constitution. Our entire nation was founded on the rejection of the logic that had created Pakistan. Pakistan said religion is a determinant of our nationhood. We're going to create a nation for one religion. And the remaining leaders from Mahatma Gandhi to Nehru to Ambedkar Sahab to Maulana Azad, they all said, no, we have been fighting for the rights of everyone. We'll create a country for everyone. And the Constitution enshrines that principle. It doesn't matter what your caste is, your religion is, your language is, which state you were born in, what your color is. If you're an Indian citizen, you have the same rights as every other Indian citizen. Now, the problem at the moment with this government is that they don't seem to care about these things. I'm fully supportive of those who've gone to the Supreme Court saying that this is a violation of the Constitution. So that's the first and most important answer to your question on the CAA. On the Ram Mandir, I am a Ram Bhakt myself. In fact, from my childhood, our prayer room at home always used to have a famous portrait, I think, going back to the 19th century, of Ram and Sita surrounded by all the gods. And that's the one that I found a copy of and made, and I framed in my house as an adult, and I still have with me at my home in Delhi, and I pray to every single day. Who gave the BJP a copyright on Ram? Why should I surrender my Ram to the BJP, a Ram who's been with me, as it were, in my heart and my mind since my childhood? I'm not going to surrender that. As far as I'm concerned, I go to a temple to pray, not to attend a political event. And that's why I supported the Congress party's position not to go to the Ram Mandir now, when Mr. Modi is performing the Pran Pratishtha rather than a priest doing it. But when the time comes, certainly one should want to go and offer prayers completely shorn of any political context. That's a different matter for most individual believers. It doesn't mean that because there is a temple there that the BJP will get votes for every Ram Bhakt in Kerala. My grandmother, I remember reading the Ramayana, we have this Ramayana month in Kerala, which is a very Kerala tradition. And I remember my grandmother reading aloud the Ramayana every night, every evening, day and evening during the Ramayana month, and that was a tradition for all of us to grow up with. We never ever thought that this automatically puts us in the category of communal politics. We don't believe in communal politics. So these are the distinctions you must appreciate. And besides, when supporters of some of the Hindutva elements talk about Ram, which Ram are they talking about? The Ram whose name was on Mahatma Gandhi's lips when he died? Or the Ram that was the name of the assassin Nadu Ram who shot Mahatma Gandhi? Is it Ram Rajya that Gandhiji talked about, or is it Nathuram Rajya that they're talking about? I'm clear in my mind, we reject completely those who've assassinated Mahatma Gandhi.
Give me one prediction, your prediction for the big 2024 general election. I mean, realistic prediction, your realistic prediction.
I think a realistic prediction is that the worst case scenario is the BJP gets the largest single party tag, but they're not going to be able to form the government because the numbers aren't enough. And if we are able to campaign effectively in the Hindi belt and reduce the number of seats that they got last time in 2019 in the Hindi belt, I'm confident that even within the BJP there's going to be a lot of seething discontent, which people are expressing so far privately, but which will come out in the open against the existing leadership there. That's the prediction. Obviously, there is then the task of building an effective coalition government, bringing together the various voices, and that's something that I hope everyone, you've seen Mr. Kharge has a very collegial style. He's been trying to make sure that no bridges are irretrievably burned. It's a question now of saying we will talk when you're ready to talk, but we are not going to have any permanent problems in this alliance. If it works in Punjab and it doesn't work in Delhi, or the vice versa, so be it. Here in Kerala, no question of allying with the LDF, but next door in Tamil Nadu, CPI, CPM, Muslim League, Congress are all together with the DMK, and that's the way, frankly, the India alliance is going to work. I think at the end of the day, do we have the numbers? That's what we've got to get to, and as I think I told you earlier, we are very close to getting those numbers. So I think it's going to be a very important election. It's a battle in many ways for India's soul, because the soul of India resides in this concept of everyone accepting differences, accepting to live together in harmony and coexistence, versus an idea in which there is a majoritarian triumphalism of one religion, one language, one leader, one party. That direction, I think, is a rather ominous direction for our democracy to tread, and I certainly hope the voters do not put us on that unfortunate path.
Thank you so much.
This is a message for to Rajiv Chandrasekhar. Is this one message you would want to pass on to your challenger? Please go ahead.
Well, I think I've already partly spoken when I asked Shibi what exactly has been done by Rajiv's ministry for Thiruvananthapuram or for Kerala in either of his two responsibilities, IT or skill development. I'm sorry to say there is nothing to show for it in the last couple of years. So it's been sadly a classic record of non-performance. Whereas his attacks on me as a non-performing MP will have to face the 70 pages of detailed material that I have presented over my 15 years of service to the people of Thiruvananthapuram. But it's not my job to challenge the challenger. If he is my challenger, let him ask me, and I'll be very happy to respond in as much detail as he can take.
Tell my viewers one reason why we should watch this interview.
Why should you watch this interview? Well, it's an interesting election. There are not too many places in India where there's a genuine three-cornered fight. And where there is, I think it can be of tremendous interest to the voting public, to those who care about our country's politics, and equally to those who care about our country's future.